So hi everyone, welcome to our September meeting of the 250 Water Street Working Group. This meeting is co-convened by the offices of Congressman Dan Goldman, Assemblymember Grace Lee, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, Councilmember Christopher Narte, Community Board 1, and Senator Brian Kavanaugh. Our meetings are recorded and posted online. The agenda will be pretty typical. We'll start with a DC update, a Langan update. I think we have an AKRF update on archaeological monitoring. Then we should also have DEP on to give a quick update on the noise monitor. And then we will go into updates from Laura Dodge and then the community stakeholder discussion and Q&A. So unless any of our convening offices have any comments, we can go to DEC. All right.
Good afternoon. As many of you know, I'm Heidi Dudek. I'm the section chief for DEC, overseeing the brownfield cleanup of the 250 Water Street site. It's hard to believe it's September and we are into phase 2, which began this summer. Really not much to report. The site has been progressing through the summer. We have had 100% oversight and no issues have been noted. And that's pretty much it from our standpoint. I think it's turn it over to Nini, and she can go into the details as to what's been completed and where the next work will be completed.
Thanks, Heidi. All right, we can just dive right in. Do you want to go to the next slide? Perfect. Okay, so this is really just high-level reminder. Phase 1 completed on the right-hand side of your screen, and phase 2, which is where the bulk of our focus is right now in the field. Next. Okay, here's a camp update. So the best part of the update is that there have been no exceedances of PM10, which are particulates or dust, volatile organic compounds, or mercury vapor resulting from ground intrusive work. We have been proactively placing camp stations off-site on Pearl, Beekman, Water, and Peck, and you can see a picture of what they look like on the upper right-hand part of your screen. And we have been proactively applying Atmos odor vapor suppressing foam in areas containing potential nuisance odors, and proactively spraying Mercon in the area adjacent to the former mercury hotspot towards Beekman. So that is the update there. Now we'll look a little bit at remediation progress. So a couple of things with this figure. It looks like there's a lot going on, but I will try to simplify it for everyone. So first of all, you've got the fence line on the outermost side of the figure. Within the fence line, you've really got 2 different types of supportive excavation. One runs outside of the blue line and the other one runs inside of the blue line. The SOE on the outside of the blue line towards the fence line is supportive excavation that is shallow. It extends plus or minus 30 feet below grade. The shallow SOE must be installed before the inner SOE, which is the deeper SOE that it is advanced to bedrock, is installed. So if you look at the color coding here, let's start with the outer SOE outside of the blue line and closer to the fence line. You can see that it's mostly green, meaning we have completed the installation of the shallow SOE along the entirety of Peck Slip, along the entirety of Water Street, along a portion of Pearl Street, but we still need to complete, or we are completing because it's in progress, the shallow SOE installation along Beekman and along the left side on your screen of Pearl Street. Now, when you look at the deep SOE, which, as I said, needs to be installed after the shallow is installed, you can see that we have completed deep SOE only along Peck Slip, and we are, and it's not even 100% complete. So we continue to install along the edges of peck slip, the corners of peck slip, and then we'll move to install the deep SOE around the balance of the site. So that is what this figure shows, really just progress with SOE around the perimeter of the site. Yeah, that is basically what this shows. Next. Okay, another element of phase 2 remediation that has been ongoing during phase 2 remediation is excavation and off-site disposal of soils. So to date in the phase 2 area, we've disposed of about 92 truckloads of excavated soil and fill and construction and demolition debris. You can see that the areas of excavation where we've been focused are the areas in yellow. We have been proactively applying Atmos foam during excavations in areas containing potential nuisance odors. We identified an underground storage tank that was unanticipated along the Water Street boundary there in the bottom part of the figure. The tank appeared to be fully intact, but for the top of the tank, and it did not appear to have released. And here's a bit more detail on that tank. As I mentioned, it was identified during excavation towards Water Street. And what we did with it was to clean it, decommission it, and dispose of it. And you can see these pictures that show that it's substantially intact, but for along the top of the tank. The big opening was cut by the remediation team. It was not how the tank was sitting in the ground. Along the other tank that's shown in slide 5, if you don't mind popping back, or the other potential tank, I should say, over there towards Beekman Street. Basically, we did a geophysical survey, which it almost is like running a large, what do you call them? Those metal, oh my gosh, I can't remember what they're called, but you see people doing them on the beach looking for metal and sand, jewelry and sand. But it's like a metal detector that you run over the surface, and instead of, beeping, which would come if you used a metal detector, this machine actually generates a map that can show you where anomalies are identified, subsurface anomalies are identified. So when we did the geophysical survey, we identified an anomaly along Beekman Street that appeared the same size and shape of an underground storage tank. Whether it actually is an underground storage tank, is still to be determined. We did mobilize an excavator to that area and excavated in a couple of locations up to about 8 feet below grade to try to identify it. We could not find it. We may find it as we continue to excavate in this area, because as we all know, the entire site is being brought down to well below the depth at which a UST would be located. All right, next. And now we'll look at schedule. We've kind of broken this up into what's happening in September and October and what's anticipated in October and November. So in September and October, as I mentioned, we're working on SOE installation. We plan to complete the balance of the shallow SOE installation along Pearl, Beekman, and Water. We'll be excavating the site to about 8 to 14 feet below grade. And we'll also be continuing the deep installation around Pearl, Peck, and Water. And that will allow for us to excavate even deeper across the site. In October and November, we'll continue with the deep SOE installation and finish it, hopefully. We'll continue with, or we'll initiate and continue with site-wide dewatering. And I say continue because there were some elements of dewatering previously. And we will reach the final excavation depth at about 15 feet below grade. Next. This slide, you've seen it every time. It provides the methods that you can contact the construction team and the remediation team. Please call us. Please call us directly. Please send us emails. Please send us emails directly. It's the fastest way to get concerns to us. So please do that. Additionally, as always, we maintain the 250bcp.com website. So that is the update on my end. Thanks.
Thanks, Mimi. I think, Brian, are you on?
I am on, but if you just go ahead, I'll.
Oh, sure. So now going to AKRF.
Hi, everybody. I have just a very minor quick update on the archaeology, just to say that as a reminder, once excavation gets below a threshold of 8 feet below the ground surface is when the archaeological monitoring is required to start. So they've recently, in the last couple of weeks, hit that depth. So we've started heading out there to do our monitoring. Haven't seen anything particularly interesting yet, but we're starting our work up again, and so we'll be out there and looking for stuff.
Great, thank you. And I think we have Umberto on from DEP.
Hi, Emily. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
If not, I can put on headset.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, in terms of the noise, as you know, we've been working with your office, you in particular, and the public school PEC slip. So as you know, but just for everybody else, we were able to install the noise sensor to capture excessive loud and construction noise within the site on August 22nd of this year. We worked with the principal, Maggie, right? And her staff, who were very helpful in having us coordinate this and install it. Obviously, we had to make sure that it was functional, it was working. We had to do some configurations, but it is up and running. It has been up and running. In terms of the access, we've provided the school with access to that data, and your office, in particular, you Emily, meaning that you can go in through our user profile and check the data and look at the data whenever you want. Obviously, DEP staff will continue to look at the data and continue to monitor and see if there's any spikes or loud noise issues that we can respond to and have the contractors take some measures to reduce the noise. Same as the hotline or calling 311. Basically the same thing, just extra eyeballs and extra monitoring. Let's see. I think that's about it, unless you had any other questions for me.
I think we'll do questions at the end probably, but thanks, Humberto.
You're welcome.
So now we'll go to Laura Dodge.
Afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I'm not on camera. I'm away from my desk, but I did want to miss the call today. So as Mimi indicated, we've been tracking the progress. Langan has done a great job keeping us up to date, which we appreciate. They've been letting us know when the daily reports are posted, which has been pretty quickly after the close of each day. So we've been reviewing the progress, and as Mimi indicated, we have not seen any exceedances of any air quality parameters, which has been great. I know there was an occasional odor detected on site during some of the petroleum impacted soil areas, which was addressed with the Atmos foam, as Mimi indicated. No issue with the air quality on the offsite camps when that occurred. I think it was once or twice during the course of the recent activities. Once there was a concern, and it was noted by the residents, which we addressed and relayed to, and the hotline was called, which was great. The procedure that was laid out was followed. I was communicating with CV1 and with Langan, and everything was addressed, and it went, everything went smoothly. I've also been in touch with Langan about the underground storage tank that we thought it existed along near the intersection of Water Street and Beekman. As Mimi indicated, so far they haven't found it. And they also do already know, in accordance with the project requirements and the best management practices, that if they do encounter it, they're going to be ready with the Atmos foam in the event of any possible nuisance odors that might be generated. So, proactively applying that. So, we've been tracking the progress and haven't had any need to do more than just update CB1 and provide any response to any questions. And so we're, happy to be able to report that, communications have been really great. And we do appreciate the proactive emails from Langan, so that we're aware of when things are posted, which saves us time and having to look for those daily reports. But we are reviewing them every day. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great. So now we'll do community stakeholder discussion Q&A. Anyone have questions? Megan, Alice first, then Megan.
Hi, all. Just a question for Elizabeth. I might have missed something. I came a little late, but could you just the supportive excavations, and it said if someone could help with the definition with that. That shallow is 30 feet deep. What are the distinctions, and how does that enter into the review of the archaeological aspects? It was a little unclear.
Mimi, do you want to describe the SOE?
I might punt it to either Paul or the construction team for the details on the installation.
I'm just interested in the excavation, like if it's going
Like
down
how
30.
it works. Yeah.
Well, moreover, if it's 30 feet is considered shallow. Did I read that right? So
Yeah, that's right. Deep
right.
extends all the way to bedrock.
Right.
Right.
So those are big numbers, and obviously quite under 8 feet. So I'm just curious, has the archaeological team been brought in those areas? I guess
we did not. It's the same as kind of with last year's work. There's the way the SOE is typically constructed, and the team can get into that more. There's really nothing to monitor. There's no real way for us to see anything. It's very often, done with drilling and stuff, and I'm not the expert in that, so I don't want to be using the wrong terms. But we didn't monitor it because there's really nothing for us to monitor. So it's seen as something that as long as they build the wall that allows them to dewater, that's what lets us see the rest of the archaeology. So we don't typically monitor that, and then we are able to actually see things in the ground once they start to lower the grade.
Yeah, I can touch on the methods. So the shallow SOE, we have two different types of shallow SOE. One is soldier piles and lagging, which is the same type that was used during phase one. That includes advancing a single pile. So it's like a 10-inch diameter, approximately, steel pile that gets drilled into the ground, and there's no soil generated from that. And then the site's excavated down, and they install the wood lagging along the side that you can see now that's exposed. And then the other type is the soil mix, which is done with a couple different types of rigs. There's the shallow soil mix that they already completed, and then the large soil mix the deeper soil mix that they're doing along Peck Slip now. That involves actually injecting grout into the ground as they advance the drill rig down. And there's no soil that's actually generated. Everything's just solidified with the grout, and creates this kind of thin concrete wall at the perimeter of the site. So it's not taking up much of the property. It's just going straight down from the site perimeter, basically straddling the property line, both inside and out.
Thanks. Can you also confirm that you had quite a bit of cubic yards of excavation? I guess this was at 8 feet, so none of this triggers the archaeological monitoring, the 1,840 cubic yards of excavation of soil where you found the unanticipated UST, but nothing else? Are you confirming nothing else was found of archaeological merit? Or was it not that monitoring had to begin because it wasn't under 8 feet? I was just curious.
So the majority of the excavation has been above 8 feet at this point. It's all been the shallow soil on the phase two side. We had, I think AKRF has been on site now for 2 weeks because that was around when we got to 8 feet. So everything else that's had been done to date, all that trucking was from shallow fill that was above 8 feet below grade.
And nothing's been found, I guess this goes back to Elizabeth, of archaeological merit in that
No,
8
there's
feet.
there's
Right.
still they're still pretty shallow. So I think
Right.
once they start to get deeper is when we may start to actually see something of interest.
And you begin that excavation when again? Is that
It's
October?
begun. We've
Yeah,
had
it's
somebody
okay.
on the site monitoring for the last couple of weeks.
And last question, remind me again how LPC interfaces here with you?
In what way?
Well, that's, I guess, my question.
Um,
Do they come out? I thought they had to come to the site if something's found, right? Is that how it works?
Depends. Essentially, so they have oversight of the all the work they reviewed. We provided an updated work plan, which they accepted. And basically we're just constantly in touch with them, giving them updates. If something is found, we will tell them, and they may want to come out, they may not. It's going to kind of depend. When we found landfill structures last year, they didn't make a site visit. So it kind of just depends on the extent of what we find.
Can you share the updated work plan, or is that something that everyone's already seen?
It's not very different. I don't know if that was circulated. Adam, do you know?
I don't recall if it was circulated,
Okay.
but I think it's I think it maybe comes from LPC, but we're happy to coordinate with them and share it with you.
Thanks a lot, Adam.
It's almost identical to last year's. It just updates the schedule and the team and the slight differences in the SOE wall and things like that.
Right.
It's otherwise the archaeological protocols are the same.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Emily.
All right, Megan, then Elaine.
Hello. So I guess the one question that came up in the chat that I'm on is, and I think we've covered this, I just want to make sure I understand what I understand, is that all the different suppressants, the Atmos, et cetera, all that stuff that's been applied, and this can be another question in a minute. There was a lot of water the other day at the site, and I guess a drill was stuck, and the question was, how does that impact the river? Or I know there's drinking water isn't really a thing here because that's not where we get our water from. But if you can just refresh my memory about how that can or does not or does impact the river and the drinking water.
Well, I guess the first thing is, what water specifically? Was there water that was being used on site that you observed, or water elsewhere?
So there was a big water event on the 20th.
Yeah.
Adam, he was great in responding to people's concerns about it.
Yeah.
And the whole it wasn't a dewatering because there was no trucks to get rid of it. So
yeah,
it's just sort of spurred this idea of like what happens. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Give me a half.
Yeah, so I can
Why don't you answer
go
that,
over
Paul?
what occurred on Wednesday night. They had a piece of the drill rig got stuck into the ground, and they're using a drill to loosen it up. They added some water to kind of help with the loosening process.
The hydrant water, right, Paul?
Right. As far as water goes, we in New York City, we get all our drinking water from reservoirs upstate. Nobody's coming into contact with groundwater. The site is above the groundwater table at this point, so there's no groundwater on site. Any water that gets added would, drain down into the groundwater table.
Similar to how rainwater drains on a construction site as well.
Right.
So it's really no different whether it's hydrant water that's applied or rainwater.
Cool. And so the Atmos doesn't have an issue with it going into the river, or how regular drain water drains away.
What's his name again, Tito?
Right. Yeah, the Atmos is getting applied at the surface. It's not being kind of added to that. And it's not a concern for contaminating the groundwater table.
Okay.
There's no contaminants in the atmosphere. I guess
That's
is-
okay. Thank you. That's all right. Cool. Excellent. And that will, because I think the belief was they thought that a pipe had been burst because they saw so much water, but it was in fact applied water from a hydrant to help get the thing unstuck, right?
Correct.
Sounds like it,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so we talked about that. Oh, the approved work hours are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and it's been witnessed, viewed, I don't know, experienced that they're starting way earlier than that. Just want to make sure that is my understanding right that it's not supposed to start until 7?
Yeah, I think those are the approved hours under the permit for work for the majority of the work on the site. I think I think there's setup and some other things that go on before 7 a.m. to make sure that they can actually start the work at 7. But I think that was the explanation.
All right, I'll just double with the folks that are worried about it. I'll just make sure is it just the truck rolling up to the site, or are they actually starting the construction at that? I think that's the question that we want to make sure is clear, and that they understand that them getting ready isn't them starting work at the site. Like you're allowed to prep before the 7 a.m. time, right?
Correct. That's my understanding.
Cool. And then my last question is storm prep for this weekend. Are you guys doing anything different? Are they working this weekend? What's the idea on that?
Yeah, so there's no work scheduled this weekend. We've been in touch with Suffolk GC and ECD, the foundation contractor. We're walking the site before for the last hour before to make sure everything that needs to be secured down is secured down. The site's cleaned up, and so precautions are being made for potential rain and wind over the weekend. And then on Monday morning, we'll do a check as well to make sure everything was maintained over the weekend.
Is there a way that something, Paul, if you're comfortable with this, or I mean, I can write it up, but I think it's going to sound so much more like official from you, is that you're taking extra steps before the storm, we're walking the site, something like that, and they're going to check it again on over.
I'm pretty
There's
sure it's a section in our wrap.
Section in the wrap that we are kind of documenting. There's measures to take before and measures to take after.
Okay.
So I can, we can paste that into
That's
the
cool.
chat.
I know that's a specific question that was asked. And again, if they see anything funky happening, they have the phone number and the email that they can reach out to.
Definitely.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Elaine?
Oh, hi. Part of the question, hi, everybody, and thank you for this meeting again. Part of my question might have been answered because I got a call at 8:40 on Wednesday evening that the lights were on, there was noise on the site, there was work being done on the site. The woman that called me had called the hotline. They were very responsive. She said they were polite and responsive and they would find out what was going on. And by 9 o'clock, it was over. Was this in relation to the drill bit that was stuck?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so you had to continue beyond the 6 o'clock deadline. Okay.
Yeah.
That was part of my question. And the other question would have been about storm prep for this weekend. And that was pretty much answered. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Elaine.
And it's good to know that the hotline is there and they are polite and responsive and they got back to the tenants that were complaining. Thank you.
Does anybody else have questions? All right. Brian, do you want to close?
Do the easy part. No, just I guess I got on a few minutes late, but I figured Emily seemed to be managing things well, so I didn't want to interfere with the flow. But just thanks everybody for being here and for all your work. And we'll be in touch about the next meeting. And obviously, in the meantime, we and all our ops are available to address any concerns.
I'm sorry, I just remembered another from the parents. last year they were able to do a pause around drop off and pickup. Is that anything that could be considered again? I know right now it's not that intense, so I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but I just want to make sure that's fresh in everyone's mind, that if it does get to a place where there's a lot of commotion, just wanted to forward that request.
Okay, yeah, we'll look at that again. I know we were trying to accommodate that to the best of our team's capability.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, sounds like it's a wrap.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
Thanks. Have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend.